Morning, folks. Hope you're all well and doing fine. Nice sunny day out here in countryside Illinois, and thought I've got a few minutes. I thought I'd start my next, series of musings, thinkings about various aspects of things musical. And it was especially appropriate that I have my classically trained T-shirt on today. This, of course, referring to the classical training of the early computer games, and which I'd never played, and but it's also but also other classical training, such as in musical composition. And my next series of videos is going to circle around, sort of focus on some stuff that I've noticed in Bach. And I, once again, will not state in any way, shape, or form that I'm the only person to ever notice these things. I don't know. Maybe they have, maybe they didn't. I don't know. But nevertheless, I found this particular series of, thoughts and concepts interesting, and I thought other people might like it as well. Anyway, my idea is to focus on, I think, one of my absolute favorite chorales that Bach set numerous times. Herzliebster Jesu, hast, verbrochen, which can roughly be translated as, Lord Jesus Christ, what have you done to deserve this fate of hanging on a cross? And there are several of these things, and I want to look mostly at the vocal ones in this first series of discussions or thinkings about, or this is what I've thought, and maybe other people have too and might find it interesting, and if not, well, good too. But anyway, before we actually get into that particular chorale, I wanted to talk a little bit about classical training and what classical training allows you to do and what it allows you to not do. And the way I want to do this, I want to look at two settings of a different chorale. Herr, habe, missgehandelt, which means God, Lord, I have mishandled. And as a matter of fact, I'll be right back. Let me get my Terry, and I'll read you the first verse. It's right over here somewhere. Here we go. Yeah, it's this. Terry, don't leave home without it, and always have a clothespin. So keep your mark. Okay, so Herr, habe missgehandelt. Where is it? It's on page GHI. Here we go. GHI. Oh yeah, Herr, habe missgehandelt. Let's see. Yeah, and this is okay. Yeah, here we go. Lord, to thee I make confession. I have sinned and gone astray. I have multiplied transgression, chosen for myself my way, forced to see at last my errors. Lord, I tremble at thy terrors. That's the first verse of one setting, and here's the first. Here's another. Like a wayward sheep and wandering, from God's path I've gone astray. Little on his counsels pondering, still I follow evil's way. Lord, to thee I own my errors, and expect thy judgment's terrors. So those are the two different versions, two different translations, both again from the Charles Sanford Terry book of Herr, habe missgehandelt. And so it deals with, breaking the rules or going your own way. And there are two, I think, really quite marvelous examples of this, where I think Bach consciously broke the rules in order to set this text effectively. And the first one of these, I've got 2 videos which I'll attach to this YouTube file. You'll see that there is a place where the tenor part, early in the chorale setting, goes above and stays above the alto for 2 or 3 beats or so, and which in a way is a sort of a breaking of rules. It's normal. It's not normal procedure to have the tenor line above the alto line at all, let alone for a beat or so. So that's kind of that's not really acceptable, but okay. And the other one, the next one, or the other one, has this marvelous almost parallel octaves at about the same point where the previous one has this marvelous putting of the tenor above the alto, and almost parallel octaves in 2 of the parts. And that, again, is a classical sin in part writing exercises, at least. Those are kind of rules, breaking the rules, mishandlings. Isn't it appropriate that in a text dealing with mishandlings and going astray, these 2 quote-unquote errors creep in? I think that's really quite fascinating, and I think a really, 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 really strongly arguable for conscious breaking of the rules expressively. This is really quite masterful. And I also want a little bit that you gotta, before you can break rules, you gotta know them. You have to know the rules before you can break them. Because otherwise you just don't know what you're doing. And not knowing what you're doing is not the same thing as thinking outside of a box. You can't think outside of a box you've never gotten into. It's just not possible. So you can't think outside of a box that you've never gotten into. And you got to know the rules in order to break them. And this, I think, is a very, 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 very good example of this phenomenon. And let this particular little video serve as sort of a whetting of appetite, or sort of a first discussion or mentioning of this concept that I find and even more interestingly used in Herzliebster Jesu, was hast, verbrochen, which those videos will be coming very soon. Hopefully by the end of the summer, this will all have been put together and up on the web. But nevertheless, this is just I think a series of really, really, really interesting topics and pieces that we'll look at in some depth. Anyway, so that's my rant, or my intro to the next little bit of little researches and thinkings about that I've done, and I'm sure other people have managed similar things, and I hope they have, because I don't want to be the only one to know this. This is great stuff to know and great stuff to share, and it really helps you if you're classically trained. Yeah. Neat stuff. There's that word again. keeping the discussion of music to a level above the waistline also is a good idea. Neat stuff. Higher levels. Really neat things.